Hi, I'm Michael Sorrell, and I'm the president of Paul Quinn College. And I am here because I'm supposed to talk to you about the college readiness issue in Dallas County. I think that's important. But before I start, I want to do two things. One, I'd like to ask you to give a big round of applause to Todd for everything that Commit is doing. Because a conversation that we are having is a difficult one to have. And in order to take much of the emotion out of it, you have to have data. Because you can be mad at people, but when you look at the data, you realize you've got to address the issue. The second thing I'd like for us to do is stop for a moment and think about the conversation that we just witnessed by the African American repertoire. What was it? Exactly. Now, here's the thing. I know that conversation because my mother had that conversation with me. I will have that conversation with my son. And every black mother and father I know have had that conversation with their sons. And it is frightening. And it is scary in a way that charges you to your core. But the reality of it is that conversation has to be had outside of our bedrooms and our kitchens and in the daylight because it factors into this college readiness issue. I subscribe to the church that Larry James is the minister for, and that is the church on the devastating impact of poverty and fear. I want to tell you a little bit of what it's like to be the president of a school where 84% of your students are Pell Grant eligible. And what that means is those students struggle with the resources. 70% of my students have expected family contributions of 0. So you want to talk about being college ready? You want to talk about equity? I'm a former corporate securities lawyer. Equity means money to me. And if you don't have it, things look a little bit different. When I got to Paul Quinn, 15 to 20% of my students didn't have the glasses they needed. So stop for a minute and think about that. Can you be college ready if you can't see the board? Can you be college ready if when you read your homework, your eyes hurt at night? So maybe your issue isn't you can't learn. Maybe your issue is you don't have an environment which supports learning. And something as simple as being able to see the words on the page that we take for granted, that if day in and day out, imagine if you got to college and no one ever stopped to ask, can you see the board? What would your ACT score be? Would you be college ready? Let's take it to another step. Would you be college ready if you couldn't afford the books? Because you have to sell your books so your family can eat. And I'm not being dramatic because I have students who don't buy their books because they need the money to help their families. Is your problem you can't learn? Or is your problem the environment in which you are trying to learn? So how do we address this issue? It's twofold. Number one is we have an honest conversation that if you fix the schools but you didn't fix the communities, you only solved half the problem. And that's important because if I send an A student home to an F community, all of a sudden he has a C life. And we have taken huge steps backwards. So we're going to have to address that issue. The second issue, and Larry hit this right on the head, we have to stop treating our poor people like they are prisoners and they are criminals or they are people to be pitied. They are none of that. They are simply individuals that life dealt a different hand to. And if we are honest with ourselves and we want to address those issues, we have to address the poverty in which they are shackled with day in and day out. Because poverty drives that conversation that mother had with her son. Because somewhere in there, what she sees on the outside is how people see poor people. whether they're poor or not. She bought him that button-down shirt so he didn't look poor, because somehow by not looking poor, he stood a better chance. That was the underlying message that didn't come through there. But that's what that meant. If we want to address our college readiness issue, we have to address our college readiness environment. The schools that our students are learning in are not places that are conducive for producing the results we want. We have to address the communities. Now, there are lots of ways to do it, and there are lots of smart people out here dedicated to doing it. So I am incredibly optimistic about where we are going. But do not miss the issue that poverty has created in the ability of our students to learn. We're gonna have to address that, and we are addressing that. But 91% of our students in DISD are on free or reduced lunches. 91%. Think about what that means the next time you want to solve college readiness. If you don't have a meal at home, if your stomach is rumbling, can you deal with geography? Can you add? Do you have the patience to learn to read? Or are you just trying to figure out how to make it to another day? Thank you, and I'm proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with you as we address these issues. Thank you.